Welcome to Dangerous Driving 2, apparently. It's been announced very recently that Dangerous Driving 2 is going to be made, and apparently it's going to be made by Three Folds Entertainment. Remember how I made the video about how EA and Criterion making the Burnout Paradise remaster was going to hurt the sales of the original Dangerous Driving game? Well, that was correct, but still, apparently, they are making a second game. And by they, I mean Three Folds Entertainment, which, yeah, that sounds right, doesn't it? But if you haven't already heard of this, not much before Dangerous Driving 2 was announced, EA announced that they're ditching Ghost Games and going back to Criterion. So, shouldn't that mean Dangerous Driving 2 would be an EA game? Because all the old Criterion guys either retired or went to this studio, Three Folds Entertainment. Apparently not, but yet this is still announced. So what does that mean? There's been some complaints, and especially of bigger YouTubers, about how EA going to Criterion is a step backward. I mean, technically speaking, in the linear sense it is, because they're going back to an old company, but I'm fine with that, really. Criterion has always done a good job in the past, and even, again, recently with the Burnout Paradise Remastered, that went well. And I don't see that necessarily changing. The newest Need for Speed game was fine, and a lot of those workers are carrying over. I would hope EA does the most rational thing and keeps the people who benefited on Need for Speed Heat, gets rid of the people who want to tap the drift and the microtransactions and replaces them with some of the people more involved with the Criterion side of things, being like the crashing engine and the overall atmosphere of things, and pretty much combine something like a Burnout Paradise with Need for Speed Heat, and that would be cool. Essentially, that's kind of what Need for Speed Most Wanted 2012 was, and a lot of people like that game. So that sounds pretty good for the EA side of things, right? I guess. Maybe. I don't really know why people are complaining so much. Ghost was literally hit or miss. It was a decent hit with Need for Speed Heat, but it was a straight up miss with 2015 and Payback. I mean, of course, they're eventually going to get something right after enough mistakes, you would hope, and they did. Yay, they got one thing right in 3 attempts. Criterion, they didn't really do all that much bad. But that kind of even carried over to Dangerous Driving. Back to more of what's on screen. Criterion still hadn't really done all that much bad because a lot of Criterion people went to Three Folds Entertainment to make the Dangerous series. The initially was Golf, and then the Danger Zone 1 and 2, then Dangerous Driving, and now apparently the second installment of that. And those games were straight up bad, they just weren't anything special because they didn't have much budget. Which brings to kind of the next point of the main reason I made the first video about the Burnout Paradise Remastered hurting Three Folds Entertainment, or Dangerous Driving, or whatever you want to call that, is because Dangerous Driving doesn't have much of a budget, so I would have figured the one with the budget, being Burnout Paradise Remastered, would just straight up dominate it. Now, with EA being Criterion again, and Ghost games pretty much just on being used in rare occasions, what niche does Three Folds Entertainment fill anymore? I don't really know. I mean, there's no guarantee that EA is going to make a Burnout game, but if they have Criterion and the Burnout Paradise Remaster was successful and Dangerous Driving was successful enough to warrant a sequel, you would have to imagine that there would be another Burnout game in the future. All signs are pointing towards it. Not getting too overly hyped for that because, again, there's been some hits and misses with EA recently. But in general, Criterion has been a hit. Not necessarily the EA side of things, but Criterion. Can that continue, though, if the Criterion staff of old have pretty much either retired or at Three Folds Well, I mean, again, the remaster of Burnout Paradise was successful, but how hard really is it to remaster a game if you have enough budget to do it? That's the problem with Dangerous Driving 2 is they're attempting somewhat to remaster in their own way Burnout Paradise, but would they have the budget to do it? What I don't get about this whole thing is they've announced this right after the EA Criterion remerger. You'd think they would wait a bit and see if EA wants to do something with Burnout. Because if a new Burnout game happens, there's no way Dangerous Driving 2 is going to catch on. I mean, maybe Dangerous Driving 1 actually sold decently well. I'm not certain exact sales numbers, but I know it is by default it was hurt by Burnout Paradise Remastered existing. I mean, can two Burnout style games coexist at once? Kind of, sort of, but when there was a 10-year period of there being no new Burnout games at all, makes you think, doesn't it? So, yeah. What are my overall views of Dangerous Driving 2? Could be good. I mean, a Burnout Paradise remake happened, and the remaster, and it wasn't necessarily done by the same people because, again, they're at a different company now. So, I mean, yeah, it's been proven that it can work, but it worked by just doing the simple, literal remake. Dangerous Driving Original is sort of kind of a remake of Burnout 3, just it kind of looked cheaper and the physics were not really as in tune as 3 was, and there was no real licensed music or not too much background, like no DJ for that game. Like there was a Tomica and Strider for Burnout series and all that. Dangerous Driving 2, I really don't think would get much more of a budget, if at all, than 1. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I really don't see that happening. And if it doesn't happen, there's no way it's going to succeed. It may not be a terrible game, especially given the budget it's working with, but like 1, it's just simply not going to be as good as what's out around it. Dangerous Driving 1 wasn't terrible. I only played it in Share Play. That's why I only played it in Share Play, because it simply wasn't worth getting, because it was more expensive than the better game, being Burnout Paradise Remastered. Granted, I see why they have it being more expensive, because they didn't have much of a budget to begin with, so they can't have a loss. That's fine. It's business sense, essentially. But you can only have so much business sense if you don't have a budget to work with. I mean, you can be as smart as you could possibly be, but if you don't have the budget, it might not matter. Yeah, it's not exactly the smartest company in the world, and they've shown that, but they still make money. I do overall think it's a smart decision that they brought back Criterion. I'd much rather them bring back Black Box, because they made the Need for Speed Underground series and the Skate series and all that, but I would say overall Criterion is better than Ghost. Ghost made one fine game. Criterion, pretty much all of the games were at least fine. What does this really mean for the future Need for Speed and maybe Burnout and all that? We don't really know yet. What is known is that Dangerous Driving 2 is going to happen. A lot of the people who used to work at Ghost are now going to work at Criterion, but there are some vacancies that hopefully get filled by people with more of the Criterion mindset, again, meaning more of the Burnout side of things. It'd be nice. But they can't be filled with the people working on Dangerous Driving 2 because, well, it exists. What I was thinking a few days ago, and I even sort of made a post on GT Planet about it, was that, EA is bringing back Criterion, and Dangerous Driving 2 didn't seem to be planned, so I wonder if they're just going to hire those people. Well, now that's not going to happen. All things considered, I guess, I hope Dangerous Driving 2 succeeds. I just don't see how it would. But then again, I didn't really see how 1 would succeed. And apparently it did enough to warrant a sequel. So, who knows? It may not be the most terrible thing, though, at this point, if it fails. Because then maybe they can just be hired by EA, who obviously isn't as good of an overall company, But with having Criterion again, that helps some, and at least they do have quite a big budget. Is it the best of circumstances? Probably not. But would it be better than having no budget? We'll have to see. That's looking a bit too far in the future, but that's why I made this video now, is just sort of, this is a point in time. At this point in time, it's still fairly uncertain, but there's a lot of cool things that could happen. Who knows? There's could be a chance of a successful literal Burnout game and Dangerous Driving 2 happening. I doubt it, but it's a possibility. That'd be the best of both worlds. But for now, I'm not too worried on the EA front. If anything, I think it's a benefit, because there's still a lot of the ghost people anyway, so I would assume what we liked from Need for Speed Heat will continue. And then hopefully they can add what we used to like in the Burnout series. And what we liked in the old Burnout series could maybe still continue with Three Fields Entertainment. Or not, and they get hired by EA. Who knows? But for now, I'd still say overall, it's worth a yeehaw. Not all that enthusiastic a one, kind of more of a tentative one. But I would still say it's on the positive side, so yeehaw.